Hi, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of Finance Friday. My name's Craig Salona, and I'm just so excited and stoked to be with you today. And today we're going to talk about something really serious and important, and that is the idea that it takes money to make money, or if I don't have money, I can't be wealthy. That if I'm born poor, I'm going to stay poor. It's going to be very difficult for me to get out of it. That I was raised in poverty and I'm going to stay in poverty. I'm not privileged. I don't have money. And I'm going to challenge that notion because it's simply not true. And the reason it's not true is as follows. Because money is a game. And like all games, it has rules. Now, unfortunately, most people were never taught the rules of the game. And if there's one thing that I'm on mission to do, it is to get financial education into middle school and into high school and into college. Because why is it that we spend all these hours sitting behind a classroom desk and we don't get a single hour of financial education? And of course, I've got my theories that when the school system during the Industrial Revolution was actually designed and created, its sole intent was to create good workers. Its sole intent was to put somebody in a chair behind a desk for 8 hours a day in order to train them for the factory. It was never designed to teach people how to get out of the never-ending cycle of poverty and a financial dependence on the state, on the system, on the corporation. And they wanted to keep you in your job and you're just over broke. And when we don't understand the rules of the game, any game, it leads to confusion and overwhelm, feelings of inadequacy, stupidity. And our natural tendencies is to go, okay, well, the game's exclusively for other people. It's exclusively for the wealthy. It's exclusively for the privileged. Who am I to know the rules of the game? And what we land up doing is we land up putting our head in the sand or playing small or being too afraid. And that perpetuates the cycle. It keeps you just over broke. It keeps you treading water. It keeps you struggling and arguing and fighting and compromising and not living your best and fullest life. And then you compound that with the idea that society and advertising and our whole mindset is just programmed for us to consume and consume and to consume. In her great book, The Soul of Money, Lynn Twist talks about the two dominant programs that run through the Western man and woman's mind. There's not enough and more is better. And there's nothing we can do about it. There's not enough. It's not enough. More is better. And there's nothing we can do about it. And so we're in this constant struggle to survive. We're in this never-ending competitive nature. Our mindset is always to go after more and more and more. Our mammalian brain is still programmed to believe that there's not enough. And it comes from our hunter-gatherer ancestors as well, that there's not enough, and therefore we have to compete for resources, even though we're living in the most prolific time in human history, the wealthiest, the most abundant time in the history of humanity. And if you are watching this in the United States, it is beyond what the world has ever seen. And yet we still live with a poverty consciousness. We still live with a competitive mindset. We still struggle and hoard and protect. And in truth, if you do what you always did, you're going to get what you always got. So we need to break the pattern. And the way you break the pattern is by learning the rules of the game. You've got to move from consumer to investor. Create the automated systems. Get money working for you instead of always working for your money. And when that happens, when you begin to understand these 5 things that I'm going to go through in a moment, things begin to shift and change. You begin to understand that there is a game at play here. And that if I simply understood the rules and the mechanics, understood this idea of how money works, that money is not actually linear, it's compounded, it grows in an exponential manner, and that if I can implement those systems on a regular basis, I can grow my wealth and I can change my belief systems. And it takes work. And if you are looking for a life of abundance and of freedom, a life of enough, so much of what I'm teaching is not more and consuming. In fact, if anything, it's less but better. It's getting okay with not needing everything, with not being overwhelmed by the constant bombardment of what society and the advertising companies are telling you are necessary to make you happy. It's just a lie. It's a scam. We don't need as much as we think we need. Probably if you take a look at your closets or your garage or your storage units, you'll see that you have bought things over and over again that you haven't used, that you thought were important, they were going to bring you happiness. They were going to bring you joy. They were going to somehow fulfill you. Only to find that you've just spent more money on your credit card. You're now financing that miscellaneous purchase, paying more and more and more money, making the fat cats richer and richer while you continue to struggle. And then you get together with your partner, and without effective systems and without effective communication, struggle and fight and argue, and most importantly, not live your fullest life. So I want to go through 5 things that are really important, really imperative in order to shift this, in order to change the paradigm and the paradox and break the patterning and the programming. And the first thing you got to do, which I recommend you do, is to begin tracking your finances. So often I find when there's not enough or people are feeling in poverty, the first thing they do is they stick their head in the sand and have no idea what they earn, where their money goes, how much they own, how much they owe. So we want to begin to identify our exact financial position. We want to begin to know what our net worth is. Our net worth is what we own minus what we owe. And that is the great indicator. It's not necessarily what you earn, it's what you own. We want to get you to start buying assets instead of liabilities. We want to start building your net worth, but that takes a system. But the first thing we need to do is we need to know where point A is. It's very difficult to go from point A to point B without knowing where you are currently. So it's so important that you begin to really look at your money, maybe for the first time, and without shame and without blame and without guilt. And that's hard work too, which brings us to our second technique, which is that you need to do the psychological work. You need to upgrade your programming. You need to start looking at your belief systems around money. You need to deal with the traumas and the shame and the guilt and the fear and the family divorces and the fighting over money and the partners that stole from you and the lost investments. Because every time that happens, what happens is it like puts a kink in the hose and it stops the flow of money. And so just like if there is an issue in a relationship, well, you have a relationship with money and you need to address it and look at it and figure out a way to unkink that hose and allow for more energy to flow. So that takes some work, because you've got to go look at your past and you've got to go look at your upbringing and who was it, who were your teachers, who taught you about financial programming. Were these wealthy, healthy, beautiful, rich people, or were they too dealing with their own poverty consciousness or their own traumas around money, or grandparents that came out of the Holocaust or the Great Depressions and are holding on to this deep scarcity, and then that was transferred and programmed? We all have our stories. And we all have our non-supportive beliefs that run the program in the background and continue to give us the same results over and over. And the third thing is to know the price of your dreams, to begin to move more into partnership with creation and the divine. To go, well, what is it that I really want? What's really important? Step outside of the bullshit of the mainstream media and what it says that you need in order to be happy. But really, truly, what are your own divine values? What is your own passion and purpose? What is it that is really going to light you up? And how much is it going to cost to get there? And when you do that together, whether you're single or you do it as a couple, it's so powerful. Because then you can actually start tracking, making a plan, making a concerted effort. Now you know where you are. You got point A, and now we've figured out, we've visioned point B, and we have now a roadmap to get there. And all of a sudden, when you're clear on where you're going and what you're wanting, the universe starts conspiring and things start happening, and all of a sudden, money starts flowing, and you're doing the belief work, and things start opening up. And it becomes like magic. It becomes magical. There's an ethereal to this. There's an energetic to money. So, track your money, upgrade your beliefs, know the price of your dreams, and then there's just some basic mechanics to money: diversification, investing, and understanding why diversification is so important. And really knowing and understanding the definition of compounding interest, and why compounding interest is the key to growing wealth, and that anybody in any financial position at any time, if you start implementing this now, can grow your money on a compounded basis. And it doesn't matter if you've got $100 or you've got $100,000. The principles are the same. The rules apply to everybody, regardless of your socioeconomic status or where you are right now. So we want to get in the game. We want to get rid of that high, expensive debt, and we want to start putting it into investments that grow on a compounded basis over a diversified portfolio. So many people are confused about the investment world, or afraid of it, or don't know about it, but it's actually quite simple. There's a few things that need to happen. There's systems that need to be placed so that you're paying yourself first rather than paying everybody else and having no money left at the end of the month. Because $1 today grows into $1.10 tomorrow, grows into $1.50, grows into $100, grows into $1,000, grows into $1 million. Do you know that if you had bought if you had bought $1,000, let's just say you'd moved into this idea of moving from consumer to investor, and you'd put $1,000 in a small IPO called Amazon in 1997, you would be worth $1.5 million today. That's on $1,000. So there's Amazon's coming online all the time. But if you're constantly in the consumer mode, if you're constantly buying and spending and cluttering and not using these technologies, you can't access this power and this magic and the majesty and the energetics. I won't even tell you how much $1,000 worth of Bitcoin in 2010 would be worth today. We don't want to depress ourselves. But know that those same companies are emerging today. And so you've got to get in the game. Even if you got only $100, even if you're in debt, you have to start transitioning your mindset. And so on top of diversification, we need to make sure that you're protected and that your assets are protected. I wrote a post about the importance of getting a will or a trust and protecting your assets. It's imperative, making sure that if you or your partner died, where do your children go to? And where do your assets go to? And otherwise it's going to go to the courts to decide, and it's going to cost lots and lots of money, and potentially your greatest assets, your children or your house or your 401k or whatever it is, might go to someone that you don't want. So you need to do that asset planning, and you need to structure your assets in a way that grow in a tax efficient manner. And I know this can feel like a lot. Because, wow, that's a lot, Craig. You said it's 5 things, but within each of those 5 things, it's... So that's why I'm here. I'm doing my best to take all of that and bring it down so that you understand the landscape, so that, like, I'm teaching you the basics and the fundamentals of the game, so that you can play the game in a good way, so that you can grow it in an efficient manner, so that you have the intelligence and the understanding. When you open up a Forbes magazine or a Wall Street Journal, you know what you're doing. You have a sense of the landscape. Communication skills and working on the upgrade of the belief systems and getting connected to your divine passion and purpose. And communicating effectively with your partner. If you're interested, if you want to know more, if you want to learn more, please reach out to me. Go to my website, financeforcouples.com, financeforcouples.com. And it's not only for couples, like the course and everything else. It's if you're a single, like, most of this work is individual anyway. But if you're single, bring a buddy, do it together. So don't feel like, oh, this is not for me, it's only for a couples course. 80%, 90% of this is actually individual. It's your own journey with money. In the meantime, have yourself a beautiful weekend. Know how valuable and passionate and beautiful you are. Recognize the gifts you have to give to the planet. It's important. Our work as light beings, our work as conscious souls, our work as good humans is important. How do we get into a level of abundance where we can share and give and contribute and actually have our voice mean something and have our dollars mean something and vote with our money? Have cool people doing cool shit. Thanks so much. Thanks for taking the time, and love you. God bless. And see you next week.